Orlando Magic HQ, what's poppin'? So Magic fans, we just wrapped up the 2023 NBA Draft Lottery last weekend, and the Magic will be selecting with the 6th and 11th overall pick in this year's draft. And it brings up an interesting question between the Magic fan base about whether the Magic should stand pat and to continue to build this young core and build through the draft with both of these picks, or if the Magic should go out there and trade these picks, go in and get a proven veteran to add some talent to this roster so that the Magic can go ahead and make a playoff push for next season and really for the future of this team moving forward. And Magic fans, it brings up an interesting conversation with guard Jaylen Brown from the Boston Celtics, who's really had a lot of eyebrows raised in the Boston community and in the NBA community about his future in Boston. Not only do the Boston Celtics currently find themselves down 3-1 to the Miami Heat, but when Jaylen Brown was asked earlier this season about the possibility of him signing a long-term extension with the Boston Celtics and where he feels wanted, this is what Jaylen Brown said in an interview. "I don't know. As long as I'm needed, it's not up to me. We'll see how they feel about me over time, and I feel about them over time. Hopefully, whatever it is, it makes sense. But I will stay where I'm wanted. I will stay where I'm needed and treated correct." Now, we know Jaylen Brown to be one of the best two-way guards in the game of basketball today, and he's just 26 years of age. But a lot of this frustration not only possibly stems from the idea that Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have never found a way to get over that hump, even after being just 2 wins away from the Larry O'Brien Trophy and beating the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals in the 2022 NBA season. But also, this probably stems from the fact that the Boston Celtics organization has consistently put Jaylen Brown out there in possible trade packages. And the most notable and recent one came with the Kevin Durant trade package before the Brooklyn Nets eventually sent Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. So let's really take a deep dive into Jaylen Brown's contract situation as of right now. So like I said, after this postseason is over, he will be in the last year of his extension, where he will be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. And Jaylen Brown, as of right now, is currently scheduled to make $28.5 million as of next season. And due to the new CBA agreement, starting this summer, teams are allowed to offer 140% of a veteran's previous deal in an extension. Boston can offer a full max contract worth $189 million, which is going to be about 30% of the cap. So if you look at Jaylen Brown's potential max offer that he can get from the Celtics as of right now, that would come out at about a 4-year, $161 million contract extension. If you wait for the CBA agreement to go through, it's going to be a 4-year, $189 million contract extension. And then, since he did make All-NBA second team this season, he is eligible for that Supermax contract extension, which is going to be a 5-year, $290 million contract extension, which is going to be worth 35% of the cap. And then when you take a look at both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are going to be both eligible for that Supermax contract extension, Jason Tatum's contract for the Supermax is going to be worth a 5-year, $318 million contract extension in 2024. So the combination of both of these guys will be making $608 million on the new contract extension. That is really going to hinder their depth and what their limitations can be when you talk about filling out this roster. And although Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been one of the best duos in the game of basketball, and they've had a lot of success since coming into the league, they've been to multiple conference finals. They've finally reached the NBA Finals last season, and it looks like they're going to get bounced by the Miami Heat in this year's Eastern Conference Finals. It just looks like they've never been able to completely mesh together, and it looks like there's also just been a lot of adversity that they've had to go through internally, not just with Ime Udoka, but maybe just the way that this duo and the rest of this team kind of fill out together. At the end of the day, it's all speculation, but nobody truly knows if the Boston Celtics are going to be willing to give up $608 million to both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, when both of these guys have really, at the end of the day, nothing to show for it, because the most important thing at the end of the day is winning a ring. And this looked like this was their golden year to go out there and go do it. And it looks like they're not going to reach those aspirations. So before we really get into the Magic aspect of this and where the Magic could possibly come into play for Jaylen Brown, let's actually take a look at what Jaylen Brown has done this season for the Boston Celtics. In 67 games this season, he averaged a career high 27-7-3 on 49, 33, 76 splits, and still chipped in a steal per game. When you look at the 2023 playoffs as a whole, he's averaging 23-5-3 on 50, 39, 68 splits. And while Jaylen Brown has really struggled in this Eastern Conference Final Series, and he's a big reason why Boston is not up in this series as of right now, you have to give a lot of credit to Eric Spoelstra and this Miami team, because they've done a great job limiting everybody, when you talk about the Bucks, you talk about the Knicks, and you've talked about the Celtics, they've done a great job buying into what Eric Spoelstra has really taught them defensively and the philosophy. But you really have to also get on to Jaylen Brown, because the dollars that he's getting paid and the expectation level for a guy in Jaylen Brown is significantly high, and he needs to be playing a lot better. But this is still just one series. He still has some time to turn around. I still think he's a great product. And yes, while he is still playing really bad in this Eastern Conference Finals, just go back one season to the 2022 NBA Finals versus the Golden State Warriors. He was the best player on that Celtics team, and he was outperforming and outshining Jason Tatum. Do I still think Jaylen Brown is a number one option? No, I do not. I think he's an extremely good number two option, and I think Jason Tatum had a horrible series versus the Golden State Warriors. When you look back at what Jaylen Brown did, and you saw how much Jason Tatum was struggling, Jaylen Brown was consistently keeping that team afloat, and he was really giving the Golden State Warriors a lot of work. So let's really dive into the Magic aspect of this, because this is very interesting. The Magic can go about this one of two ways. One, we can go and get him via trade in a sign-in trade, where the Magic can go out there and trade some assets for him, and we'll get into two little trades that I mocked up. And then the Magic can also go out there and extend him, which would be a 4-year, $189 million max contract extension, because I do not believe that the Boston Celtics are going to go out there and offer him a 5-year, $290 million super max contract extension. I don't think he's going to take anything less than that, and I think he thinks his time is up in Boston. So the Magic can go out there and sign and trade for him, or the Magic can wait till next year's free agency, where he will be an unrestricted free agent, and throw dollars at him. So let's get into two trades that I mocked up for Jaylen Brown. And no, I'm not an NBA general manager. No, I'm not Jeff Weltman. This is probably why I'm not an NBA general manager, but I'm trying to be as realistic and fair as possible for what the Magic are going to have to give up and what the Magic will get in return. So let's start with the first one. We've got Chuma Okeke, Cole Anthony, and both of our lottery picks in this year's draft at number 6 and 11. When you talk about Cole Anthony, obviously he's a fan favorite. Cole Anthony has really embraced that 6-man role, and I think he's a great combo scoring guard. Obviously, Cole Anthony is extremely sporadic. One game, he looks like he can go out there and drop 30 points consistently on any given night, and then there's other nights where Cole Anthony struggles mightily from the field, right? And then you look at a guy in Chuma Okeke who's really had an injury-riddled, I would say, career with the Magic so far too. Never really found a home and a role within this team, and it really kind of sucks, because I do think he is a good guy too. And I do think you're going to have to give up both lottery picks no matter what, because when you look at a guy in DeJounte Murray who got swapped for 3 draft picks and a draft swap as well too, with the Atlanta Hawks and the San Antonio Spurs, you go back to the Utah Jazz and obviously the Minnesota Timberwolves trade with Rudy Gobert. When you're talking about 4 or 5 multiple unprotected first-round picks, you're talking about 4 or 5 players in that trade as well too. I think you're going to have to give up some significant compensation in order to get Jaylen Brown. Even though he looks like a disgruntled asset in Boston, you're still going to have to give up some draft compensation, and I think you're going to have to give up 2 players. Now let's get into this next trade. I've got Jonathan Isaac, Jalen Suggs, and of course, both of our lottery picks. Now with Jonathan Isaac, obviously, he returned back to the court last season after not playing in the NBA really since the bubble, after he had multiple setback injuries and huge significant injuries. Jonathan Isaac has had an extremely injury-riddled career so far in Orlando, and when he's on the court, he looks like a promising young player still at 25, 26 years of age. But Jonathan Isaac is the Orlando Magic's largest salary cap hit, and I do think that he is a cap casualty when he is not dependable in terms of availability, right? Even though it's out of his will, because he's consistently getting injured, and that sucks. You never want to see that, especially when a guy plays for your team, and we see how hard Jonathan Isaac works. The reality of the situation is he has been an extremely injury-riddled and prone player throughout the young time that he's been in the NBA since 2017. And then a guy in Jalen Suggs, I think this one definitely hurt me the most, because I think Jalen Suggs is a very good guard. I still think that he's got elite perimeter defensive potential and all NBA defense. Somewhere down the line in his career, I think Jalen Suggs is a phenomenal player. I think he's an extremely hard worker, and we've seen flashes of greatness from Jalen Suggs when he takes over games and his athletic ability. And I think the Boston Celtics would want a guy in Jalen Suggs who I think is a very valuable commodity, who really is going to get another opportunity this year with Orlando to really prove his worth, probably as a starting shooting guard, depending on what the Magic possibly do in the draft. But if the Magic decided not go out there and trade for Jaylen Brown, the Magic can also just go out there and wait till next year's free agency class, when he will be an unrestricted free agent. And that's assuming nobody goes out there and trades for him and then signs him to a long-term extension. that would suck. But if the Magic do add Jaylen Brown to this roster, you'd be looking at a starting five of Markelle Fultz, Jaylen Brown, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Wendell Carter. To me, that's a top 4, top 5 lineup in the Eastern Conference off rip. I think that you could automatically count the Magic into a playoff lock, not even a play-in, a playoff lock, and I do think that Jaylen Brown would bring a lot to this team. When you talk about Paolo Banchero, who was the Rookie of the Year, going into year 2, taking another leap, taking another jump into his game and really becoming a better shooter from the outside. He's going to continue to get better. Franz Wagner going into year 3. He's only going to continue to get better. And if Markelle Fultz especially can stay healthy, we see a huge discrepancy with how bad the Magic really look without Markelle Fultz on the court versus how great the Magic look and how much more fluid the offense runs with Markelle on it. And I do think that adding a guy like Jaylen Brown to this roster would be extremely valuable. Not only does he bring a lot of veteran leadership and presence to this locker room and to this team that we've not had because we don't have guys on this roster that have been there, done that. Jaylen Brown's done it on the biggest stage on multiple moments, and Jaylen Brown has proven to be that guy. He's an all-NBA type of talent. We know what Jaylen Brown can do at just 26 years of age. He would be extremely valuable off the court, mentoring these guys. He would really do a great job keeping these guys together in the heat of a game, in the heat of a battle as well too. And we know what Jaylen Brown can do on the court, right? This guy can score on all 3 levels. He's extremely athletic. I don't think he's this elite wing defender like he used to be, but I do think he's still an above average defender on the perimeter. And I do think that Jaylen Brown is a great shot creator. I really like Jaylen Brown a lot too. I know a lot of Magic fans are really, off the Jaylen Brown train, especially after this series, but I still think that there's a lot of greatness in Jaylen Brown and a lot of great basketball ahead of Jaylen Brown in his career. And I think that lineup of Markelle Fultz, Jaylen Brown, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., you've got a legitimate core out there, and it finally gives the Magic fans some hope for the team of this future moving forward. Not because we can't do it with this young roster. That's not what I'm saying. I just think going out there, getting a bona fide star in Jaylen Brown, an all-NBA type of talent, really to help mentor these guys and to help bring that elite athleticism and that kind of game on the court to what these guys can do. I think you're going to see some special things in Orlando. Personally, I would do one of those 2 trades, even though it would really break my heart trading away some of these guys. But Magic fans, we want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What do you guys make of the possibility of the Orlando Magic going out there and possibly trading for a guy in Jaylen Brown this offseason, or potentially going out there next season, waiting for him to be an unrestricted free agent, and then going out there to pursue him in free agency? Magic fans, let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you guys go ahead and drop me a thumbs up. It takes 1 second and it helps me in the channel out tremendously. Make sure you guys also go ahead and hit the subscribe bell to stay tuned for more Magic content that I do here on YouTube. And make sure you guys also go ahead and follow me and Orlando Magic HQ on all of our socials, especially on Twitter. We're very active and we're on there every single day. The link tree will be in the description down below, so you guys can go ahead and check that out. But Magic fans, thanks again for sticking around throughout the whole video. Brett James, aka BJ, I'm out, y'all. Go Magic, baby. Peace.